Well, it's been an absolute honour to host the Sharri program while she's been away working on a special project over the last couple of weeks. And to tell us all about it, joining me on Sharri is Sharri. Sharri, welcome to your program.
James, you have done the most phenomenal job hosting over the past couple of weeks, and thank you so much for not just filling in, but for doing a truly magnificent job. And I have had such amazing feedback from all the viewers as well. Well,
it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure people will be very happy to see you back in the chair, I think next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, yeah.
But tell us, because people have been asking me, where's Sharri? What's she been doing? What have you been up to?
Yeah, so look, it's been a really heavy, what is it now, 6 or 7 weeks since the terror attack on December 14. And as you know, in that first week, I was telling so many of the stories, going from hospital to hospital and interviewing survivors. And so it was a very natural progression to then make a documentary about the terror attack. So that's what me, along with some other incredible producers here at Sky News, we've been working on a documentary on the terror attack. It's called Bondi, A Timeline of Terror. It's going to air on February the 24th. It's a 90-minute documentary. It is the most in-depth, definitive account. We have done so many interviews with witnesses who were there, with survivors, with people who were shot, and with the family members of victims. It's incredibly powerful, it's emotional, but it also breaks new ground, James. We've got exclusive content, new vision, new audio of emergency service vehicles, first responders. It's quite phenomenal, you know, over this investigative process, what we've been able to uncover. But what's just most amazed me is the courage of the people I've sat down with. I mean, some of these people have either lost those closest to them or barely made it out of Bondi alive. Their courage is unbelievable. It is so inspirational. And I think, James, we're about to see the very first look at the documentary. We've got
I'd love to have a look.
A 90-second promo. It's unbelievable.
All right, let's have a look.
Control Alpha 1-4 pulled up on Campbell Parade. It looks like there is a shooting here. We have at least 40, maybe 50 patients.
Once they came on the bridge, I was the first one to be shot.
He said, "Why would someone shoot an old man?" And he said, "Mum, I know it was because we were at Hanukkah."
I heard pop, 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 loud pops.
When we arrived, it essentially looked like a war zone.
Stay down! Are you okay?
Yes, I got shot. All right, 10-4, where are you bleeding from?
I said, get down, get down.
So you were crouching?
We're crouching here below this wall.
To think how close you were to the shooters.
And in a Sky News exclusive, hear from the man who survived 6 bullet wounds.
I knew I was in trouble when I got hit in the chest, and I didn't want to die in front of my kids.
It was so confronting seeing your wounds.
You're definitely one of the reasons I'm still here.
We aren't safe as Jews in Australia.
Graffiti, fire bombings, all of these things just escalate, escalate, escalate.
This isn't a trauma of the past. This is with us every day until our safety is guaranteed.
Do you think it could have been different?
I personally feel that the government betrayed us. They betrayed Matilda.
Bondi, A Timeline of Terror, February 24, 7:30 p.m. on Sky News.
That's the first I've seen of this, and just that 90 seconds, I can tell it's going to be very moving. What do you hope viewers will take away from watching this?
I think that in our daily news cycle, people just move on. For the Jewish community, we will never move on from this. Life is now not the same for us. I mean, you look at the stories there. Matilda's father, Michael, you know, I said to him, "Do you think anything could have been different for your beautiful 10-year-old girl, Matilda?" He said the Albanese government betrayed the Jewish community. They betrayed Matilda. And he spoke to me about how it wasn't just the shooters who were culpable, but the inaction over more than 2 years on antisemitism. You just saw there that incredible young father He barely made it out of Bondi alive. He was in a coma. He was all but left for dead. People thought he had died. But as you heard in that comment from him, he did it. He wanted to live for his children. And it was that incredible courage, that determination. He forced himself to battle through it, and where he is today. I mean, on the night of Bondi, you'd never think he'd be sitting there speaking to me and telling his story. It's just so emotional. It's incredible. It is a story of anti-Semitism, of course, as well. And what we need to do as a nation, as a country, to stop this from happening again. Because right now, I have to tell you, James, not enough is being done. And instead, you've got all the politicians fighting again. That's not good enough.
I was going to ask you, and maybe I'll come back to this, because I want to know from you, are you more hopeful or less hopeful this far after the attack with some of the things that have happened? Remind me to ask you that before we go to a break. But watching the documentary, I imagine it's going to be really mixed feelings, because I can see already it's going to make people teary, but I imagine it's also quite inspiring as well. Is it interesting to deal with both of those emotions at the same time? Because you've got great tragedy and yet great heroism all at once.
And that's exactly what we saw on the night of Bondi. We saw the worst of humanity. We saw radical Islamic extremism come to Bondi, target the Hanukkah festival. But then we saw the absolute best of Australia, lifeguards who I've interviewed, who were there before any paramedics. They ran in with their equipment. They saved lives. Off-duty nurses, doctors, other first responders who just went in and did what they can. And one of the lifeguards, I don't want to give too much away, but one of the lifeguards tells me in the documentary that there wasn't a person dying who didn't have a hand to hold. I mean, that comment just struck me. Even if they didn't know the person, I mean, you know, you're tearing up, James. Even as they were dying without their family members, there was a lifeguard, an off-duty, paramedic, someone to hold everyone's hand. And, that is the Australian spirit. So that does give me hope, but it doesn't mean we don't have this extremely grave threat of radical Islamic extremism that hasn't been properly dealt with yet.
What did you make of Scott Morrison's comments? I mentioned them at the top. I spoke about them last night as well, because I think his contribution is really important. If for no other reason, then we at least have a conversation about what's going on. What did you make of his comments, and what have you made of the reaction to his comments?
Look, Scott Morrison couldn't have done more to support the Australian Jewish community and to fight against anti-Semitism. Even when he was Prime Minister, he moved the capital to the Australian embassy to Jerusalem. He went above and beyond to support Israel and the Australian Jewish community. He's obviously been in Israel, as you spoke about. I think if he was Prime Minister, if he had been Prime Minister over the past 2 years, this crisis might have been very different, the anti-Semitism crisis. He wouldn't have put up with what we've seen. But we had this escalation of anti-Semitism. We had people turning a blind eye to the threat of radical Islam. I think Morrison is 100% right. I'm so grateful for his support for our community.
Are you surprised that people have come out just slamming him, smearing him and talking about everything except what he's saying?
They always do that. He's come up against that from the very beginning. On every topic, not just this. He was blamed for Me Too. He was blamed for everything under the sun. The left absolutely hate Scott Morrison.
Yeah, they do. You mentioned Matilda's parents saying that the Albanese government betrayed their daughter. That's very strong language. I watched you and I thought you handled the Opera House memorial brilliantly, by the way.
Thank you. Very emotional night.
And I watched, obviously, Anthony Albanese speak, and he gave an apology of sorts. And you graciously accepted that, but didn't roll over either. You pointed out that, there's still a lot of anger in the community. How far did Scott Morrison's apology that night go towards...
Albanese's apology.
Sorry, Albanese's apology go that night towards calming emotions, or is it still very raw and is there still a lot of anger?
Look, I think it's a crucial step that he apologised and accepted some responsibility for what happened on December 14. But, you know, we're journalists, James, you know, we know that would he have done that if he wasn't suffering in the polls? Probably not. It wasn't his first instinct to come out after the terror attack and say, I should have done more. I should have thrown everything at anti-Semitism crisis like we were all begging him to do. You know, I sat here, I couldn't have said more times that this was going to lead to a loss of life if action wasn't taken.
You did.
The Prime Minister's instinct wasn't to come out immediately and apologise and even do everything possible. His instinct was to go to gun reform, you know. If it's not guns, it's bombs. And we know that there were unexploded bombs found on the night of Bondi as well. Yeah. And you compare him to a leader like the New South Wales Premier Chris Minns, whose instinct is to say, I'm sorry, I let you down, I should have done more. He genuinely cares. That doesn't mean he hasn't made mistakes or the police haven't made mistakes, and there was clearly an issue with police resourcing that night, not to comment on those individual officers, but the police resourcing. There should have been more police at the high-risk Hanukkah event. But you look at the Premier's instinct compared to the Prime Minister's. You know, the Prime Minister only called a royal commission when he was backed into a corner. Yep. He only apologised when he was suffering or crashing in the polls. The Premier's natural instinct is to stand with the Jewish community.
Yeah, the contrast quite stark. Well, that documentary, just again, Bondi, A Timeline of Terror, airs on Tuesday, February 24 at 7:30 p.m. It's a 90-minute special, no ad breaks, and you will not want to miss it. Sharri Markson, thanks for joining me. We should have you back on the programme sometime.
Thank you for having me on my programme. No,
you're back behind the desk next Wednesday,
next
is that
Wednesday,
right?
yes.
I'm sure viewers will be very happy to have you back.
No, not at all. They have absolutely adored your hosting. Thank you so much again, James.
You're very kind. Thank you.